Hello, this is Lisa with Bangert Inc. And today's live stream, I'm going to be talking about why your company should be using Atrix. This software is a Windows developed software company that their mission was to create kind of like a comprehensive state, federal payroll reporting solution to make it easy for ERP systems to, send their payroll data on using their system to the federal and state governments. So today we're going to be diving into, why to use Atrix, how to use it for W-2s, 1099s, and even we'll touch on 1095s if we have time, and where you can get pricing and where their website is located. But Atrix is integrated within Sage 300 as in their payroll menu, so it is very well established with Sage and has been for many years. So to give some comfort to anybody, this is a wizard in the system that works well with Sage. So just want to make sure that that's kind of known. It's been with Sage for many years. So okay, so we're going to dive into the payroll module, and we're going to look at how to use it. We're going to look at why you want to use it, and then we're going to look at the pricing at the end. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to talk to you about why to use it first. So basically, there are payroll tax returns for many companies that involve usually four. So you've got your state unemployment, your federal unemployment, you've got your 941s, and you've got your annual withholding or state withholding returns to file. So when it comes to properly filing your state, federal payroll tax returns, there are many things that can go wrong. You have COVID pay that comes into play on your 941s. You have your Schedule B on your 941 that can be complicated to use if you do it manually. So the Atrix software helps you kind of take out some of that risk from manually filing those returns on your own, or using ERP system reports that you still might have to manually do something on those federal or state websites. So Atrix kind of handles it all as far as once you properly set up your W-2s, your 1095s in Sage, for example, then the wizards kind of help you, guide you through checking, making sure it all looks correct, and filing it with those proper agencies. It doesn't take the risk out completely for you. Atrix doesn't assume all responsibility of your filings and that they're proper. It's still on you to set up the W-2s and the pay IDs and such in the payroll module correctly, but it does help you file and alleviate and review your data in your setups. Okay, so I just want to make sure that was clear. Okay, so there's the why. Now I'm going to show you how simple it is to use Atrix for some filings. I'm using the sample data here, and the data in here is in 2015. So just kind of be aware I'm going backward many years, but we're going to use some old data here. So in the payroll menu here, you have your state e-file and reporting and your federal e-file and reporting under the tasks menu. And what this does is once you click on it, it's going to show you, start with a wizard here. It just takes a minute to pop up. Okay, so here's going to list this side is going to list your various different filings. One thing that might come up right when you hit the wizard, like I did on the task menu, is an update. So I've already updated my Atrix to be current, but you'll have an automatic or a manual download or continue expired. So every now and then, and usually towards the end of the year, quite frequently, you'll need to update Atrix before you get into this screen. Okay, it's pretty easy. So for example, to show you how simple it is, granted my proper setups have been done. My W-2 filing, you start here and you pick, this would say for 2022, it's going to say 2022, W-2, W-3, okay? But for this purpose, I'm just going to pretend that says that. I'm going to use the 2015 data, but this again will say 2022 when you're ready to file. You just hit next. It's going to list out all your employees here. Usually you're just going to hit next through the wizard, but you can scroll through and see if maybe somebody's city, state, or zip is missing. But usually all of these are selected and you just kind of go through the wizard here. So I'm going to hit next again. Usually, and this is where the only option is you hit generate. This is just giving you some information. This is pretty standard. It compiles your data, so it doesn't take a long time unless you have thousands of employees, but this takes just a minute. So it's warning me I'm using the wrong years, but that's okay for this example. Okay, so now you're going to have your next screen here. This is going to tell you, do you want to test drive this? Do you want to start processing? A lot of people will get in here before the end of the year and just see how this wizard works, if everything's functioning properly. So you certainly can do that. So I'm just gonna go through as if I am filing. So I'm gonna say no thanks. I want to start processing. It's gonna show you what the EIN is, which you set up in your company settings. So you want to verify that. This spot right here, this screen is asking you if you use multiple payroll data files. So if you have to pick your current file or your new file when you're processing payroll, you want to pick this multiple one. Most people, 90% of people, use a single payroll data file. If you're not sure, more than likely you're using a single payroll data file. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm using a single one. Verify your company's name and address. Any of this info you want on the W-3 is filled out in here. If you're an accountant that's filing for your client, you would pick that. But if you're the, employee of the company, you're going to pick that. Okay, so this screen can be a little bit confusing the first time, but this is basically listing out all of your state and local tax account numbers you have in the system. I picked that I want to file my W-2s. So it seems strange it's listing state and local out, but it's just trying to get all of your information in there regardless of what filing you're doing. So just know that this is standard, whether you pick federal or state filing. Okay. So if you hit next here and you don't have an account number filled out, it will warn you, or it'll warn you something like what you just saw, that you need to do something. And it's a pretty intuitive wizard where it knows that my structure for state withholding has to be this way for Iowa. So it has to have an 001 at the end, for example. So it tells you kind of that structure as you're going through it. Okay. So we're going to ignore that for the moment. Here's some questions that relate to the W-2 filing. So do I have anybody that's exempt or not? Do I have any members of the clergy, religious people? Do you want to use control numbers? And do you have people that, do you have anybody on, any employee that wants to receive a paper W-2, or is everybody going to be electronic? Okay, just so it can process through correctly. You have to pick the right yes or no there. Okay, now most people are going to be 941 here, so you do have to check that. The 943 is if you're agricultural based company. Refer to your accountant if you're not sure what to pick here. If you're, you know, maybe potentially one of these other ones, but usually people are 941. Rest you don't have to fill out if you don't want to there. For security purposes, people here will pick truncation. This is quite often these two are picked. More and more people are using this, but if you really want to show the whole social, you can. It doesn't really matter what you pick here. Either the government accepts all of them. So here's where it's going to start creating the grid for using the questions I've answered and pulling data down from the employee records. So it's creating our grid right now for us to look at. Okay, so in the system, it's pulled down the various totals for the year for Fed wages, Fed withholding, as you can read across the top here. What this step is doing, so up here you can see verify employee information. So it's focusing on the blue right here on the left. So even though it's listed out all these other boxes here to the right of this bar, it's kind of focusing and wanting you to look at and review the left part here. Okay, so you probably just want to make sure you know, everyone's got an address. You know, if you know someone moved, you want to double check their address, for example, came through correctly. But this all pulls from the employee record in the setup menu in payroll. So you just want to make sure everybody's got something filled in. The boxes over here, anything that's not in blue, that'll be reviewed in another step. So as you're scrolling to the right here, if it's white, you just kind of want to ignore that for the moment anyway. Okay, so once you're happy with the blue, then you hit next. Okay, so now you can see it move to this part. So I want to make sure anybody that is deferring, so over here, there's a reason they have this second screen, second side. So anybody that has a deferral amount has to have a checkbox. You know, you can look up your W-2, W-3 rules on how to fill these out properly, but anybody that has an amount here should have a checkbox there. So it's just wanting you to review, do you need to mark a statutory employee or third-party sick pay? So if you do, you can come in here and just click it. Now, the setup on the employee records does, and the transactional processing and payroll does fill out a lot of this for you, but some things you will have to click in this wizard. Statutory employee, I believe, still pulls from the record if you set up the employee correctly. Third-party sick pay, I'm not sure if that does or not, but again, you can just come in here and click it if you forgot to do it in the setup of the employee or while you were processing any payroll. Okay, so this overrides anything that you have done in the past in the payroll module. So you can change addresses in here. I don't recommend it. Recommend going back and fixing the employee record first, but you could change an address in here if they just moved right before you're processing your W-2s and you just want to fix it quick. You can do it right here in the wizard. Okay. So we're going to hit next and see the next step it takes us to. So now you can see it moved us over here. We're confirming our federal wages, our federal withholding, Social Security, Medicare. So a good practice to do as a side note is you're going to want to double check that these match your 941s for all 4 quarters, these totals. Okay. So if they don't, again, refer to your CPA or accountant and they'll help you through that. But these should agree to those. So you don't have IRS issues or Social Security Administration issues later on. Okay. So they give you those totals up there for a reason. Another quick side note, you can highlight columns and copy and paste to Excel. There is not an export button at this time, but you can highlight, say you have a difference here, you can highlight and copy and paste the employee column and the wages column, for example, into Excel to help find and play with that around a little bit. Okay, so we're going to hit next. It skipped over box 12D, but again, confirm your totals, you know, and that you agree with this information or if you know something's wrong. But over here, it's now confirming your state wages. Okay, so you can see the blue starts here on box 16, and now we're to the end. Can't scroll any further. Okay, so you'll want to probably confirm that your tax for the state or tax withholding agrees to your annual filing that you do for the state or your quarterlies or monthlies, however that state works, that you've withheld. You're reporting the same amount on your W-2 to the state that you show up here. Okay. So we're going to assume everything's correct. I'm going to go to the next step. There is no other data showing there. So we don't have any like box 14 showing. So I'm going to keep moving on here, but usually it would highlight other columns in here. Okay, so now this is nice. It's going to tell you your price. You've got the number of employees you're using. If you use the complete service, you know, you can, they will print and mail them for you, or they can e-file them. But this gives you here kind of the final step of what happens. They do send them on to the SSA, as you can see. So it kind of tells you what all they do for you. You can, you know, click on what's this and see more info. But this is kind of the end step here. I am not going to go further here, but at the next step you get a PDF of what you filed. So what your W-2s and W-3 will look like. There's a few more steps after that before you actually file it. And actually, I am going to go forward because I don't have credit card info in here. So it won't charge, but I'm going to just give you your price, what it does. I don't usually pick the PDF archive because you get one anyway. So this would be like they kind of archive it for you. You can if you really want to, but I always save down the PDF it generates for you. So you kind of just keep going through here. Now these are just the instructions. So this is not your W-2 or W-3 actually, but you can print them if you want. Okay. It's generating on my other screen here. I can't move it quite yet, but once it does, I'll show you the next few steps here. Okay, so as you can see, it's created your actual W-2s from your data. It has given you, it's telling you like that it's the employer W-2 copy. So there's many copies, but you can just kind of click through. You can review them, so you can go through your pages here, see if anything looks strange to you. If you really want to go through, look at all these. Notice up here I didn't truncate, so maybe I want to go back and truncate, for example. Okay. So if you're happy with all that, you can print the employer copy to PDF. So here's where you would do that, like I was discussing. But if you're good with all that, you've printed the final, you hit the next step here. You don't necessarily need to do that because we're e-filing these, but again, just generating a bit. Okay, so now we're on the federal W-2. You don't need to print a copy of this if you've done the other one. I don't suggest printing copies of every step here, but it's just giving you what it actually looks like. So you just kind of need to hit next here through a few screens. Now we're on the W-3, so it's going to give you the totals of the W-2s here on the W-3. Again, like I kind of discussed, you kind of want to double check these add up to what your 941s do in these boxes up here. You probably want to print a copy of this, however, in normal practice. Here's the state copy. Again, probably don't need to print this because you have the employer copy, but you can if you want to. And then here's Oregon's annual withholding. So I kind of mentioned that in a little while ago about you might have an annual withholding return to file. So the red boxes you do need to type in. So based on, what you filed. So these normally would be filled in. It's just I'm in mid-year in the filing. I'm going to skip over this because that's a specific state report. Anything red you generally need to fill in. I have to put zeros in here. Okay, and here is where I will stop. Once you sign up with Atrix for the username and you'll have a username and password because you do need to create an Atrix account. But once you do that, you sign in here, and this is where you actually hit the button to e-file all these forms. we won't sit here and watch this, but this is the step here where you actually log in to the Atrix site and it pushes it out for you. Just it's still all through here through the wizard, however. Okay. So I'm going to close this here. Okay, so that's pretty simple process to get your W-2s e-filed to the government, to get to send them to your employees, to create copies for yourself. And I believe for those 50 employees, it was only about $150. So it's really, really cost effective. I will say though, and this will be another class to watch for on the Bangernt user group on Bug. You do want to make sure your W-2 forms here under the tools menu are set up correctly so that your e-filing with Atrix is correct, because it does drive off of your form. So your box 12D, your deduction that you've set up in the payroll menu up here has to be filled in, you know, if you want anything to show up on box 14, for example. So we will be doing more classes on, you know, the W-2 setup in your state and your 1095s. So just watch for those coming up. But again, just to look, to know in general where it's at, you would come in here to this W-2 form side. Okay. So I covered like a W-2 filing, but there are state filings you can do as well, like your work comp, or excuse me, your state unemployment and your your withholding for the state. So you can, you will see these. So this is an Iowa number, but you can pick different states. Just make sure your wizard is up to date and you download the updates, but you can pick your states and see, you know, your different forms for your states, in your years and quarters and such. So I just wanted to give you a flavor of what the wizard looks like and how easy it is. These are a little quicker because they're shorter. W-2 wizard's a little longer, but it's a pretty simple process. You just have to make sure your pays and your deductions and such are set up correctly with your taxability, pre-tax. You know, you've set up all of that correctly and you have the right rates in for state unemployment, for example, in the system here. Okay, so in order to get pricing for Atrix, if this is something now that has interest you, I would go to the Atrix website, and there is pricing out here. However, I do recommend contacting, it's really easy to get a hold of them, contacting them and getting specific pricing. Talk about the packages with them because they do give discounts on your filings if you purchase, you know, in all your state and all your W-2s and your 1095s, 1099s. If you purchase all of it, it kind of, they give a discount. So I would recommend talking to them here on the website to get that specific pricing for your company. It does depend on the number of employees you have, those different packages and such, but they're very, very responsive. So, okay, so that is all I wanted to cover today. Hope that this was informative, and enjoy the rest of your day.